today's webinar. So CMT is organizing this MEMS technology webinar series as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative of Government of India to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of progressive India. As you could see, we have already completed 9 sessions of this webinar, and today is the 10th one about MEMS packaging, welding and sealing. So there is one more session, the upcoming session that will be on day after tomorrow, that is 9th June of Wednesday, and it will be on MEMS fabrication lithography, and it will be handled by Mr. Harsha S. So, and today's topic would be on the MEMS packaging, welding and sealing. Will be the session will be taken by Shri Pradyumna J. And our institute, CMTI, it was established in the year 1962 in technical collaboration with VIOSO, a leading R&D center of Czech Republic. And it's managed by a governing council assisted by a research advisory board. So it started with an objective to support industries to achieve excellence in technology and stimulate economic growth. So this slide shows you the CMTI twist with technology, how the technology developed by phase. So from 1965 to 1970, it's technology development for machine tool. From 1974 to 82, NC technology, noise and vibration, fluid power metrology, etc. 1984 to 88, CAT, CAM, CAE. 1990 to 97, it's CIM technology, FMS, and IT in MT. 1998 to 2007, ultra precision engineering, rapid prototyping and tooling technologies. 2008 to 2014, nano manufacturing, HRD industry ready engineers, mechatronics and automation, additive manufacturing, industrial vision, sensor integration engineering, MEMS, etc. In 2013 to 18, it's D&D axial piston pump test rigs, qualification testing of aerospace components and subsystems, D&D of customized test rigs, D&D of textile weaving, DTM, machine tool and subsystems, Demo and Development Center for Industry 4.0, Surface Engineering. So the mandate funding happens from Government of India, and we get knowledge from academia, that is like IITs, IISc, CSIR, international experts, and opportunities. So we are the solution providers, incubation, tryouts, deployment, product development, and services. So these core competencies, as you can see, the 4 pillars like design, manufacture, inspection, assembly, and testing. So in the field like product development, special purpose machines, machine subsystems, special products, inspection test systems, co-creation with academia, productization of proof of concept, technology development, patents and publications, the lab services, metrology and calibration, fluid power and testing, noise and vibration, chemical and metallurgy, the HRD, so postgraduate programs, corporate training programs, short-term training programs are also available. So kindly visit our website to view or download the training calendar. I will send you the link as well as the email ID. If you have some queries regarding training programs, you can always get back to us. We conduct seminars, workshops, and conferences on various topics. Student projects is also available, that is MTech projects. Internship as well as apprenticeship is also available at our institute. So these are the various centers, departments of our organization. Center for Machine Tools and Special Purpose Equipments, Center for Smart Manufacturing, Precision Machine Tools and Aggregates, Center for Sensor, Vision Technology and Controls, Center for Micro Nano Manufacturing and Metrology, Center for Additive and Special Manufacturing Processes, Center for Skill Development, Center for Business Development and Support Services, Center for Planning, Finance, Administrative and Engineering Services. So these are the various laboratory services which we provide. Chemical laboratory, it's NABL accredited. Laser calibration of machine tools. Metallurgical laboratory, metrology, inspection and calibration. Again, it's NABL accredited. Noise and vibration laboratory. Testing of hydraulic components and oil condition monitoring. So this is about our faculty, Shri Pradyumna Jay, our resource person. So currently working as scientist C and is holding MTech in machine design. The group is MEMS and Sensors Group, Micro Nano Systems Engineering Group. Center for Sensors, Vision Technology and Controls. We call it as CSVTC short form. So he has more than 7 years of professional experience in the field of design and development of subsystems for machine vision, product design for various in-house and customer requirement, designing of MEMS sensors, MEMS fabrication process, MEMS characterization process, and microsystem packaging processes. So is a team member in design and development of MEMS-based thermal flow sensor for various application. So under the technology development, nano imprint lithography, UV, NIL and hot embossing, 3D packaging of MEMS devices and ASCI by deep reactive ion etching, DRIE. So is a team member in sensor technology development facility, STDF project, infrastructure development, establishment of clean room of 1,000 and 10,000 class, key role in establishing total gas management and utility, and is a faculty for training programs and workshop in the area of MEMS and its application, fabrication and packaging. He has also published several papers in national and international conferences. So this is about our faculty, Mr. Pradyumna Jay. So thank you for providing me opportunity to introduce our organization to you all. And now over to our faculty, Mr. Pradyumna.
Thank you, Manjunath. Manjunath, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. My screen is visible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Manjunath. Thank you for the introduction. So I welcome all the participants for this next session on MEMS packaging, that is mainly focusing on welding and sealing. So my presentation outline would be like this: introduction to packaging, types of packaging, need for hermetic packaging, parallel seam sealing, and E-beam welding. So coming to the background, like what all we have undergone till this session, that is we have seen like how the MEMS chip is being fabricated by various deposition and etching processes, followed by protection of these MEMS devices like wafer bonding techniques, wherein we cap the MEMS device by silicon to silicon bonding or glass to silicon bonding. And then coming to how the electrical contacts are being established between the die and the package substrate or a PCB through wire bonding technique or through FCB technique. So more often we happen to witness that though these devices are fabricated as per the design standard, standards, they often tend to fail when they are put into the real-time conditions. So why these failures happen? So these failures may happen because of the poor packaging quality. So let us have a look at how this packaging takes a front seat in maintaining the reliability of these devices. So coming to the overview of this package, the development of this IC package or a MEMS package is a very dynamic technology wherein every day there is a new advance that is taking place in the field of this IC and MEMS, and which varies from mobile telecommunications, satellite broadcastings, aerospace and automotive applications. So each of these applications will have their own demand on these packages. Like for example, if it is a space application, it has a different demand, and if it is as a undersea application, it has a different, and if it is an automobile, it has a different application. So they actually put demand on these electronic packages. And to meet such diverse range of requirements, these packages encompasses over 30 and more different types of packages are there in the market. So coming to the purpose, so why we have to do this package? So
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Pradyuman.
yes,
There is some mark coming on your screen. Is it possible for you to drag it down somewhere?
yeah. 1 second.
Yeah, now it's better.
Now it's proper, right?
Yes,
Screen
yes,
is
now it's fine. Yeah, perfect.
So the purpose of these packagings will be there, like for establishing electrical connections and to have a good aid of heat dissipations, and to increase the effectiveness of the surface area, to increase the convection, wherein these packages give a very good surface area for the heat dissipation. That is what it means. And to physically protect these packages or these chips, the actual die or MEMS die, from the environment, and also to give a hermetic seal. And coming for the requirements of this, which are expected from these packages, are with respect to the electrical this thing, it has to have a low capacitance and low inductance and low resistance. With respect to mechanical, they have to have a very reliable mechanical strength. That is, the packages should have a reliable mechanical strength. And coming to the thermal requirement, they should have a low thermal resistance to get the heat out of the package or from the die to the outside environment. And coming to the economical requirement, they should be easy to purchase and also assembly. So coming to the materials which are generally used for these packages are like plastic, because they are low cost and they typically require a custom designed packages. So with the plastic, we can always try to design a custom required package. And coming to ceramic materials, they have a better heat transfer characteristics. And also they are very good for research and prototyping. So these ceramic packages are more often used for prototyping and research purposes. And more often, the factors to be considered during the selections of these materials are the thermal expansion of these materials, the dielectric constants of these materials, and also the interconnect capacitance. So what are these interconnects? So we have already studied that these interconnects may extend from chip to package or to package to the board. So when I say chip to package, it means from the chip to the package. That is through wire bonding or a flip chip bonding through solder bonds, that we have already seen in the previous presentations. So let us see these package to board connections, that is through hole mounts and surface mounts technologies. So some of the issues of these packagings are reliability issues, that is delamination between the die attach and the die pad, the fatigue failures of the interconnects, and the fatigue fractures of the solder joints. And coming to the failure mechanisms, it is the mismatch coefficients. That is the mismatch of the coefficients of thermal expansion of different materials which are being used in the packages. And also mechanical vibrations and the material strength in environmental effects. So these are some of the packaging issues which has to be addressed. So coming to the first mode, that is the through hole mount packages. So it basically uses the leads which are present on the package. So the leads are inserted into the hole, which are drilled on a printed circuit board, which are copper plated. So these leads are inserted into the pre-drilled, pre-coated holes. And these leads are then soldered from the opposite side. So the chips are placed inside this package. So some of the features are like they provide a strong mechanical bond, but the drawback is that there is an additional requirement of drilling is there, and also this makes the bolt production a bit expensive. So usually these techniques are reserved for bulkier components such as electrolytic capacitors that requires the additional mounting strength. And coming to the next one is the surface mount packages, wherein it has largely replaced the through-hole technology. Here the components are very small and directly mounted onto the PCB. And both chips can be mounted both on the front and back, both sides of the board. So this gives more room for wiring inside the PCB, and also the PCB can be strong. This also reduces the space between the package leads. That is, it has either small leads or there is no lead at all. And also, this have a very short pin or a flat contacts or a matrix of solder balls. So we have seen that BGS, the ball grid arrays in the previous session. So it also offers a low resistance to inductance and connections. So that is the feature of this surface mount packages. So coming to microsystem package. Microsystem package is to provide support and protection to the delicate core elements, that is dies. These dies may be either a MEMS die or an ASIC to associate with wire bonds and transduction units from mechanical environmentally induced damages like heat and humidity or anything for that matter. These environmental damages can be anything. So though this packaging industry is a very thankless industry, it is a $125 billion worldwide market, which employs more than 1 million people in this industry. So it mainly focuses on the miniaturization and the integrated systems. It can be photonics, MEMS, RF devices, or also it involves system engineering, that is engineering of these packages. So when we see the packaging trend from 1980, which was from the multi-chip module, that is MCM, where the chips are mounted on a 2D plane of the package, which consumes quite an amount of the real estate of this package, till the heterogeneous integration wherein, which is in the current trend, where the IC chips are stacked one above the other, with more efficient outputs of these chips. So coming to this application spectrum, so we can see that the MEMS can be applicable in industrial, automobile applications, medical applications, aerospace, and space applications. So in all these applications, these devices are subjected to very high temperatures and very high pressures and other types of mechanical shocks and vibrations and extreme environmental conditions as in the space applications. So, and to address these issues and to make the chips perform its intended duty, a good protection is necessary from all these hurdles. So encapsulation is required for these devices or the chip. So basically encapsulation provides an economical way to protect the device package by isolating the active device from the environmental pollutants. And at the same time, it also offers mechanical protection by structurally coupling with the device of the package material and also provide a robustness to the package. So this sealing, however, is permanent by being hermetic, but the costs of these processes are very high. So though these sealing techniques are permanent, they also have a cost implications on these processes. So hermetic seal, when I say, so it is a type of sealing that makes a given object airtight, that is preventing the passage of gases, can be any gas, air, oxygen, or any gases, to and fro from the device. And hermetical seal also are essential to correct and safe functionality of the many electronics and healthcare products. So these seals are used in many electronics and healthcare products. So encapsulation and sealing, some of the features are like its dimensional stability has to be looked into, and its resistance to thermal excursions, its permeation providing to isolate the permeation of environmental pollutants, It's thermal dissipation, providing dissipation of the heat generated by the package to the outside environment. So basically, hermetic seal follows a MIL standard of 883. A seal that will indefinitely prevent the entry of moisture and other contaminants into the cavity. So hermetical seal means that it will indefinitely prevents the entry of moisture and other contaminants, but such seal does not exist in the nature. So if we see in the graph, there are different types of materials wherein the non-hermetic materials like epoxies, silicons, fluorocarbons, organic polymers. So when we happen to use these materials as packaging materials, they can only last for maximum up to days, or sometimes it can last up to hours only. And the permeability is shown in this y-axis. So when we see the other part of the graph wherein the hermetic materials are present, like glass, silicon nitrides, and metals and pure crystals, when the packages are made out of these types of materials, they happen to have the hermeticity for about tens of years. So one such method of making an hermetic seal is that parallel seam sealing. So basic principle is that a seam welder is intended to deliver a multiple overlapping weld spots, creating a continuous weld joints, joining a metal lid to a metal or a ceramic package which contains an electronic MEMS device inside this. So we get to see a metal lid, the body, and the electronic device which is being placed inside the package, and then they are being sealed. So it is basically a type of a resistance welding where the power is supplied is passed through the tapered electrodes, where you see the weld current is passed through these tapered electrodes. And then since the resistance of this interface is higher than that of either the lid or the case, the heat gets concentrated at the seal and reaches almost about 1500 degrees. So at the interface of this seal, the temperatures will rise to about 1500 degrees. So while the other part of the device will be at a very lower temperatures. So because of these high temperatures, they tend to volatilize the contaminants. So the weld will be a contaminant-free weld. So here there is an application of pressure also by the electrodes to hold the lid case, which often accommodates a fair degree of non-flatness. So even though there are flatness issues with the base and the lid, so by the application of the pressure by these two electrodes, it has been accommodated. So these cases are generally held by fixtures which are having a good thermal conductivity. That is, they remove the heat which is being produced by the welding. So the most common process in the seam sealing are the two roller electrodes are moved along the opposite side. So we can see here that the electrodes are being moved from on the opposite side, and the travel speed is set so that the weld stitches or overlaps without making a weld unnecessarily wide. So we see here that there are weld spots which are overlapping on each other, and the taper angle, that is generally the taper angle of these electrodes are generally 12 degrees, which affects both the weld penetration and the uniformity of the heating of the lid case interface. As the electrode force increases, the temperature control becomes less critical, but the contact resistance goes down and more heat is conducted between the lid and the packages. So this is how the more heat is conducted between the lid and the package and the welding happens. So the resultant weld is more homogeneous but requires higher power, and the body of the component gets a bit hotter. So in parallel seam sealing, the most common material which is used is a cover because it has a coefficient of thermal expansion close to glass, and which also prevents to glass seal from leaking due to the material expansion from heat generated in the welding process. So typical materials are like cover, nickel, and ceramic bases. Here, the lip of the lid, that is the lip of the lid, which is being shown here, must be thin enough. Typically, in terms of 100 to 150 microns will be the thickness of this lid, which allows the seal interface to reach the welding temperature very quickly. And whereas the other portion of the lid will be at a lower temperature. The center of this lid can also be a thicker portion, which gives a mechanical stability of to the package. And for rectangular or square packages, the weld are accomplished in 3 phases. That is, as we see here, the first phase will be spot or tacking, wherein there is only one weld which is being generated, and followed by the first seam, wherein the first run is run on one axis, and the next the package is indexed, and then the second run is done. So here we see a good weld between the lip and the package body. So this is considered to be a very good welding. So there is one more type of seam sealing which is called as opposed electrode seam welding. So in this opposed electrode welding, which is usually carried out on a circular packages, wherein the energy is passed from the one electrode to the other through a flange of the package. The resistance between the header and the cover results in buildup of the heat, and eventually the piece is fused. So here we see that there are 2 portions. The one is the bottom portion and the top is the header portion. And we get to see a slight projections here. So these projections, when there is heat is supplied, it tends to fuse into the material and then happen to provide a better weld quality. So advantages of this seam sealer is like it is local and short time heating. So because of that, there is very little thermal effect to the internal elements. And then coming to that, there is easy pressure control. So usually the pressure applied is like 5 to 10 power minus 4 pascals of pressures are applied. So that is again very less pressure and low voltage. Because of this low voltage, there is no damage to the circuit. And piece sealing. So because it is done piece by piece, so the yield rates are very high. And high temperature. So highly reliable nickel can be used, which has high melting points. So for the electrode materials, we can use nickel. And rapid cooling. So these are some of the advantages of the seam sealer. Yet another process of having a hermetic seal is through E-beam welding. So E-beam welding technology was basically invented by an Austrian physicist, Dr. Karl Heinz. So basically it is a fusion welding process in which a beam of high velocity electrons is applied to 2 materials to be joined. So these free electrons in vacuum can be accelerated to their path, controlled by electric and magnetic fields. In this way, a narrow beam of electrons carrying high kinetic energy can be formed. So by controlling these paths by electric and magnetic field, it can be controlled. So which upon collision with the atoms of solids transforms their kinetic energy into heat energy. So coming to the E-beam welding applications again, it has a wide spectrum of applications wherein it is used in rockets, locomotives, automobiles, healthcare. So it is used everywhere. So principle of operation is like the electron beams are composed of electrons that are charged particles and can be accelerated in electron guns to high velocities, giving them high kinetic energy. So because though the mass of these electrons are like 9 into 10 power minus 31 kg, it is very negligible, but due to its high acceleration, they tend to impart a high energy into the workpiece. So at 10 kilovolts, the electron travels approximately at 20% of the speed of light. And when we accelerate it to 200 kilovolts, they almost travel nearly closer to the speed of light, that is almost 70% to the speed of light. So this electron beam welding process is carried out in a vacuum chamber. In this process, electrons are emitted from the heated filament called electrodes. So these electrons are excited by applying high potential difference, that is 30 kilovolts to 175 kilovolts between the cathode and the anode. So the higher the potential difference, the higher would be the acceleration. So the electron speed may range from 50,000 kilometers per second to 2 lakhs kilometers per second. So this is the magnitude of the velocities at which these electrons will be traveling from the gun to the workpiece. So with this high kinetic energy, electron beam strikes the workpiece, high heat is generated, resulting in the melting of the working material. The molten metal will fill into the gaps of the material working piece to be joined. So when, as we see in this diagram where electrons are coming from higher velocities, they hit the workpiece. So first thing what happens is the electrons will be passed through the material. And again, there will be an inelastic and an elastic scattering of these electrons. And there will be a secondary electrons which will be emitted from the workpiece. And also there will be a backscattered electrons also coming from the workpiece, that is usually used in the SEM imaging. And also it also tends to give out X-rays and visible radiations. So these are some of the byproducts of the electron impingement. So electron beam setup, welding setup, basically it consists of 4 stages, that is electron gun, the power supply unit, which basically constitutes to beam generation, beam forming and beam guidance, and the vacuum chamber, that is the workpiece holding chamber, and the workpiece handling devices. So these are the 4 setups which are there in the electron beam machine. So coming to the electron gun. So electron gun, the electron beam is the most often formed by the triode style of electron gun under a high vacuum conditions. So these triodes are basically an assembly of electrically amplified vacuum tubes, which consists of electrode, a heating filament or a cathode, a grid plate, and an anode. So the grid cup, a specially shaped electrode that can be negatively biased with respect to the hot cathode or the emitter film, and an anode that is again a potential electrode. So the hot cathode emitter film is made of high emission materials, usually tungsten or a tantalum, which is usually available in the form of wires, ribbons, or a sheet form. So coming to the types of guns. So there are 2 types. That is, one is the self-accelerated and the work-accelerated. In coming to the self-accelerated, here the electrons are accelerated by applying the potential difference between the cathode and the anode. Whereas in the work-accelerated type of gun, the potential difference is applied between the workpiece and the anode. So coming to the parts of this gun, there is an emitter filament, that is, it is the main source of electrons, which upon heating, which generates electrons. The anode, which is positively charged element near the cathode, across which high voltage is applied to accelerate the electrons. For example, for high voltage equipments, the potential difference will be around 70 to 150 kilovolts. And for a low voltage equipments, the potentials will be around 15 to 30 kilovolt. And coming to the grid cup. So these grid cups are a negative voltage with respect to the cathode is applied. So grid cup controls the electron beam. So coming to the electron beam focusing, it has 2 parts. So the focusing is done by 2 of the elements of this electron gun. That is the focusing lenses and the deflecting coils. So coming to the focusing lens reduces the diameter of the electron beam and focuses the beam down to a much smaller beam cross section and the plane of the workpiece. So here we see, with the help of these focusing lenses, we happen to bring down the diameter to the minimum possible which will be focused on the workpiece. And coming to the deflection coil, so they are employed to bend the beams. So it also provides flexibility to move the focused beam from the spot. So when I say bending the beams, here is an example wherein deflection. So here we see 4 coils which are magnetized and which are homogeneous in their fields. So we see that the beam spot is at the center. So once there is a change in these magnetic fields, the beam often tends to drift its position. So this is how the beam deflection is being carried out. And coming to the beam shaping, so with the help of these lenses, we can also shape the beam, that is, change the shape of this beam from a perfect round shape to an elliptical shape, wherein here, by changing all these magnetic fields to a different values, you can also change the shape of these beams. So with this beam shaping, we are able to get different sizes of this, different shapes of these beams, wherein we see the first one is the single spot, and here we can get to see a circular beam shape, and here we can get to see a shape in the form of the number 8, and here we can get a shape in the form of an arrowhead. So when we see the cross sections of these beam shapes, so it happens to be like this. So these beam shapes can be applicable for various applications. So coming to the next one, that is the power supply. So it mainly consists of high power DC supply for the gun, focusing and deflection coils. So these are the main 3 units which will be consuming more power. So the power, it provides also the power to the accelerating the electrons. The potential difference of a high voltage equipment ranges from again 70 to 150 kilovolts, and for low voltage it is 13 to 50. And the current levels are ranging from 50 to 1000 milliamperes. And the amount of current depends on the diameter of the type of the filament. And the next one now is the vacuum chamber. So generally E-beam welding is performed in a vacuum chamber. The gun portion of the electron. So when I say the gun portion, the portion where the gun is present is being also kept under vacuum. And that is because this gun are to be maintained very clean and prevent the film from oxidations and impede high pressure short circuiting between the cathode and the anode. So when I say the E-beam process will happen at a vacuum level, so here is a classical example wherein we see that here the gun is also maintained at a certain negative pressure, that is at vacuum 10 power minus 4 millibar, but the chamber is maintained at a atmospheric pressure. So we see that once the beam enters the chamber, there is a dispersion of this beam and the actual beam power is not being utilized by the workpiece. And once there is a moderate vacuum, we see here, though still the vacuum, the gun is maintained at vacuum and then the chamber is slightly maintained at a moderate vacuum level, we tend to see that the beam starts to converge. And at a very high vacuum, ranging at more than 5 into 10 power minus 4 millibar, we see that the beam size and the beam spot is very defined and then it is narrow down to the workpiece. So the maintenance of this degree of vacuum is more important because it has more effect from the ambient pressure and on both the beam and the weld produced. That is, the quality of the weld which is being produced by these type of welds also depends on the vacuum. So the next thing is the workpiece handling. The quality and the precision of the weld profile depends upon the accuracy of the movements of this workpiece. And there is also a provision for movement of this workpiece to control the weld speed. So generally these workpieces are controlled by a CNC controlled XY table or a rotary table, which are in synchronous with the parameters of the electron beam gun. So coming to some of the process parameters which govern the welding. So they are majorly into accelerating voltage, beam current, the welding speed, and the beam focusing. So these are some of the process parameters which decide the quality of the weld. So coming to the accelerating voltage, the potential difference between the two electrodes, that is the cathode and the anode, are usually in terms of kilovolts and being accelerated to increase the electron energy. The increase in the voltage results into the increase in the speed of these electrons. So when I see in this graph, so at lower electron accelerating voltages, the speed of these electrons are slightly negligible, that is around 20% of the speed of light. When we see the speed of light is 3 into 10 power 8 meters per second, and when the accelerating voltage is around 200 kilovolts, they travel almost approximately to the speed of light, about 70% of the speed of light. So here in this table, we can see that how this accelerating voltage will have a depth of penetration effect on various materials like aluminum. If we see at 60 kilovolts, the depth of penetration is 23 microns, and at 120 kilovolts, it is 72 microns. But when we see tungsten, it is only almost 3 microns and 10 microns for the same accelerating voltages. So the next parameter is the beam current. So the beam current is a measure of the quantity of the charges, that is the number of electrons usually expressed in terms of milliamperes. So that flows per unit time in an electron beam basically defines the electron flux which is passing at the beam spot. So there is a close relation between these electron beam current and the depth of penetration as well. So this graph also gives a better idea of how the beam currents will dictate the depth of penetration of the material. And yet another parameter is like the welding speed. So the welding speed directly affects the depth of the penetration of electron beam into the workpiece. And the higher speeds result into lower depth of penetration, wherein this graph clearly shows that even with the higher accelerating voltage and the closer distance of the workpiece, with higher welding speed, the depth of penetration attained is very less, and vice versa, where at lower accelerating voltage and high distance between the workpiece and with lesser weld speed, the depth of penetration achieved is considerably good. So mechanisms of this depth of penetrations. So the high impact energy of these electron beams on the work surface, the penetration depth into the workpiece is very low, is with just few microns, and most of the kinetic energy is converted into heat. The high energy of this density at the impact point causes the metal to evaporate, thus allowing the falling electrons to go deeper. So once these electrons hit at the first, so they only transfer the heat energy and then starts to vaporize, and then allowing the incoming electrons to pass through the metal or the molten pool of the weld pool. And this finally leads to the metal vapor cavity, which is surrounded by a shell of the fluid metal covered with the entire weld depth. So here we can see that this entire hole is covered by a sheet of a molten metal. So with the action of this capillarity, this molten pool again rises up to form a weld, and you can see the bead formation. That is because of the capillarity action of this weld. So again, so here with this graph, we can see that once the electron beam is coming, that is the forces of the vapor pressure of these electrons. And then here we see that F2 is the force resulting from the surface tension of this molten weld pool. And then F3 is the hydrostatic pressure which is acting within the system. So for equilibrium, it has to be that the force F1 is to be is equal to F2 plus F3. Now at the front side of the cavity, a new material is molten in which to some extent evaporates, but for the most part flows around the cavity and rapidly solidifies at the backside. So we see here that once the electron beam is passing through this, the melt pool is flowing back towards the melt pool and then solidifying. So that is the reason we see this bead formations. So again, welding modes. There are two different modes wherein one is the conduction mode of welding and the other is the keyhole mode of welding. So in conduction mode, the energy is coupled into the workpiece solely through the heat conduction, and the heat conductivity of the material limits to maximum. We see that the weld depths are very small. So these are preferred in applications wherein aesthetic looks are very important, and they also produce a very smooth weld, and they does not require any grinding operations. Once the weld is done, it will not require any grinding operation. On the contrary, here the keyhole mode welding, wherein the welds are incredibly strong and are indicated for a deep penetration and structural weld, wherein this will call for a deep welding where structural strength is required. Here, the molten metal flows and fills the voids as the beam travels from the material, and generally used in applications like turbine blade welding, valves which are going into space. So such applications will call for keyhole mode type of a welding. So here is a graph which will show the power consumption comparison between the laser welding and the e-beam welding. So when we see the 100% power input, most of the power, that is almost 80% of the power, is being consumed by the auxiliary components such as water coolers, controls, and high frequency tubes, and laser processors, and the beam exit power. So finally, when we see the beam exit power, so it is almost only a 10% of the input power. On the contrary, when we see in the electron beam welding, the 100% out of the 100% of the power, almost 80% of the power is used for welding. So of all the fusion welding processes, the electron beam welding gives the most highest energy efficient. So here we can also see the heat affected zone of the different types of welding processes, wherein starting from TIG welding to MIG welding, laser welding, and plasma welding. So electron beam welding has a least heat affected zone. So this also is a contribution to the high energy efficiency. And coming to the materials which are being used for e-beam welding, so this graph clearly gives a idea on what materials are being used. So coming to nickel and its alloys, copper and its alloys, titanium, carbon steel, high alloyed steel, and aluminum. So these are some of the materials which can be welded along with their alloys, and also some of the dissimilar metal welding can be also thought of by this graph, wherein we can also have a weld between nickel and carbon steel, but nickel and cast iron is slightly challenging. So this dotted lines indicates that the welding is slightly challenging, but the straight line, the good line, will indicate a better weld quality. So likewise, we can always have a comparison, ready comparison of the materials which can be welded. So coming to the advantages of this e-beam welding is like it has high penetration to which can be obtained, and high welding speed is obtained here, and the material of high melting temperatures can be welded. That is like when I talked about tungsten, so they can also be welded, and superior weld quality due to welding in vacuum. That is, these welds are usually corrosion free. So corrosion free welds can be obtained with this e-beam welding, and distortion is less due to the less heat affected zone. As I shown in the previous slide, the heat affected zone is very less, so hence there is less distortion in the material or the grain structures of this material. And a very wide range of materials, like the thickness of the sheets can be joined, starting from 0.025 mm to 100 mm of the materials also can be welded. And some of the disadvantages of these weldings are like the material has to be electrically conductive, and there is high cooling rates which will tend to have a hardening effect, and also sometimes they may also crack. And there are high precisions of seam preparations are required. That is, surface preparations are very much required when we are going for a weld. And the beam may be deflected by magnetism. So sometimes when we use a magnetic materials, beam may be not falling on an intended position, then it will be deflected by these magnetic waves. And also there is formations of X-rays, and the size of the workpieces are also limited by the chamber size, because the chamber sizes are limited by the vacuum generation. So it will reflect on the size of the workpiece also. And initial investments are very high of these systems. So once we are done with this packaging, so we also have to check the leak test also of these packages. So we also tend to do a leak detection through a helium leak detection. So helium is the best choice to find the leaks because it is non-toxic, it is inert, it is non-condensable and non-flammable, and it is also present almost in traces of 5 ppm in the atmosphere. And due to its small atomic size, helium will pass through the leaks. So helium is the second light gas compared to hydrogen, but hydrogen is not an inert gas. And also it is lighter with the neon gas, but these neon gas also is very expensive. And is also relatively, this helium gas is also relatively an inexpensive gas and available in a pure form. So these are most widely used gases for the helium leak test. And there are other leak detections also, but helium leak tests are the most sought out leak detection tests. So helium leak detection, it contains the following modules, that is the mass spectrometer for the leak detector, the control systems and the valves which control the individual steps of measuring cycles from evacuation to the testing vents, and the rotary pumps, the turbomolecular pumps. Because these turbomolecular pumps are used because if suppose I say the packaging is carried out at almost 10 power minus 6 millibar in a E-beam welding chamber, so these turbomolecular pumps should be capable of reaching to a much lesser vacuum levels like 10 power minus 11 to 10 power minus star, so that it will create a positive pressure within the package so that the leaks can be tested. So what happens is here the test specimen, that is the package, is being put inside the leak chamber and it is being pumped with the helium gas. Because the package is at a negative pressure, that is it is been fabricated at a vacuum condition, and the helium is filled inside the chamber at a positive pressure, and then it is left for some time, that is maybe for a day, that we call it as a pressure decay test, wherein the helium which is present inside the chamber will tend to pass into the package. So the pressures are monitored before and after the helium is being pumped inside the chamber. So this change in pressure will be a gauge of the specifying the hermeticity of this package. So with this, we have helium leak testing machine system, which is at CMTI from Adixon, and the hermeticity and leak measurements of sealed microelectronics. It can go up to 10 power minus 12 millibar liters per second. Again, the applications are like bombing leak test and hermetic seal with mil standards of 833. Sniffing tests can be performed. Spray tests also can be performed. And coming to nitrogen seam sealer at CMTA, they usually have ceramic and metal package seam sealing application. Both rectangular and circular packages can be welded, and up to 0.1 MPa of nitrogen positive pressure can be maintained within the chamber. There is also an attachment with vacuum bake oven, which can reach up to 250 degrees centigrade. And the maximum part size which can be welded or seam sealed here is like 150 mm. So crystal devices can be welded, images sensors can be welded, MEMS devices, photonics devices can be welded here. And coming to E-beam welding facility at CMTI, we have a system from EVO beam. It has an exciting voltage of 60 kilovolts, and the beam current can reach up to maximum 100 milliamperes. The chamber size is limited to 350 by 350 by 350 meter cube, and it has a twin gun setup, wherein horizontal and vertical twin gun, and also XY table, that is CNC controlled XY and rotary tables are also there. So again, the applications here is vacuum hermetic sealing for electronics and MEMS devices, majorly for aerospace components, and gas turbines, pressure sensors, engine components, and impeller welding. So these are some of the applications of this E-beam welding, which we are doing at CMTI. So to summarize, these MEMS sensors package play a key role in reliability of these sensors. And also the packaging material has to be rightly selected based on the application. And also the hermeticity is an important criteria in critical sensing applications. So these are some of the inferences of this presentation. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.